I've got some important updates. Now that we're halfway complete with the rankings, I'm going to take a month break from this show. I'll be back with more Best of Trek, Worst of Trek by June. I've got a ton of yard work to do in the month of May, and more importantly, so I can get my rankings list caught up. I'm only around number 300 right now in my second watches, and need to get ahead a bit more so that I don't have to do so many re-ranks when I find episodes that are way worse than I ranked them the first time through. In the meantime, I've got a re-ranks and retrospectives video, and a long satire and Trek video to bring out in this time. So I'll probably release those in the Sunday-Monday time slot usually reserved for this show. I will continue to do Best 5, Worst 5, and my weekly review of new Star Trek episodes. I'm also in a panel podcast live every Saturday discussing Strange New Worlds called Subspace Chatter. We did a pre-release video this past Saturday, and I'll leave a link in the description. I'd like to really thank all of you who have been there since the beginning, and the multitude of you that have subscribed to this channel in the past month. There have been nearly 20 times as many views in the past 30 days as the month before. And I can't thank you all enough for sticking with me through the emotionless delivery and terrible green screening that plagued the early episodes of this show. I am humbled to be your host, Dustin Wing. Pulling shenanigans at 386? Not Q. Or the Squire of Gothos. This episode starts kind of weak with Yum and empty coffee cups, and weird messages start appearing on the Enterprise screens. They beam down to a planet with a fun callback to the salt vampire from the Man Trap. We meet a being that's not Q at face value, but is 100% the influence for him in TNG. We dazzle Kirk and Lieutenant Credits to Navy Beans with parlor tricks for the bulk of the episode, before devolving into a familiar setting of Kirk being on trial. In the end, it turns out he's a child of his godlike race, and he's learned not to mess with other life forms for his own amusement. This one's quite silly, but a solidly fun watch. Following up one baby Q with another at number 385, the Godmother. Or Q2. After Icheb gives a TLDR report on Kirk, Q shows up with his son born back in Season 3's The Q in the Gray. He's hoping Godmother Kathy can help teach him some of her Federation ethics and get him to stop messing with other life forms for amusement. At first, it just results in a series of antics until Daddy and the Continuum rein in his powers for a week to see if he can make progress towards being a better citizen of the universe. He starts making progress and friends like Icheb until he throws it all away to mess around on the Delta Flyer. His dad teaches him a lesson, and after some protest, he's reinstated to the Continuum in the end. It was cute having Jean Delancey's actual son playing the role here. Just another purely fun episode for the tricksters of the universe, the Q Continuum. Being replaced at 384, slowly invaded. Or displaced. When a race that supposedly doesn't know what's happening slowly replaces the crew of Voyager, they realize something isn't right. Eventually, they're all imprisoned in a habitable biome and just trying to escape. We learn that Klingons, for all their warrior spirit, don't do well in the cold. But the Nerians that took the crew do even worse. Janeway takes control of their technology and blackmails their leader with death or returning to Voyager. This is the episode that really starts the chemistry between Tom and B'Elanna. Coming home to Papa at 383, Fatherly Pride. Or Brothers. The first part of this episode leaves me so unattached to it, I'm actually kind of rooting for this kid to die. These unaccompanied minors have been left on the ship while their Starfleet parents go on sabbatical. For some reason, they're allowed to go on shore leave by themselves. One eats a fruit with some nasty parasites, and it somehow becomes his brother's fault. While trying to get him to a star-based medical facility, Data goes on the fritz and takes control of the Enterprise with the longest password in history. When he leaves the ship, what he finds is his more than 100-year-old creator, Dr. Soong. He used a homing beacon to summon Data to implant an emotion chip that will look different every time we see it before he dies. They have some weird yet touching moments until Lore shows up in hideous Pac-led attire. He tricks Soong into putting the emotion chip into him, and that's when all hell breaks loose. He presumably leaves his creator for dead, then Riker and away team show up just in time to allow Data some final minutes with his father. It has some iconic scenes, it's also as boring as can be in many places. Being alone at 382, alone in the dark. or doctor's orders. In a race against time, the crew of Enterprise decide it's better to go into stasis and take a shortcut through anomaly-prone reconfigured space, rather than take 2 weeks going around. Phlox is the only one able to survive in this space and spends the runtime seemingly alone. Let's just get the spoiler out of the way now that he imagines T'Pol, but she's really in stasis also. The ultra-social doctor starts to feel both the loneliness and effects of the space they're in, to the point of almost shooting Porthos. Some parts are pretty mundane and boring, but the existential angst that builds for Phlox in this episode makes this a solid watch. Being of the heart at 381, faith, or sacred ground. While visiting a sacred monastery on a planet, Kes wanders off the guided tour and into some kind of radiation field that leaves her comatose. In reality, the ancestral spirits have taken her pa or whatever, and Janeway takes it upon herself to go through an initiation ritual to try and better understand what's killing Kes. This one is ranked poorly in other places, and I think a lot of people just see exploration of religion equals uninteresting. But if that's your takeaway, I'm sorry. I once had a pastor tell me that religion is a book telling you to take 2 steps back, and you do it. But faith is something completely different. The episode pokes fun at all sorts of meaningless religious rituals, all the while trying to build up the better parts of faith, like camaraderie, philosophical discourse, and the literal leap of faith Kathy has to take when she carries Kes back into the same field that knocked her out in the first place. Somehow it works, and the Doctor gives us some exposition of technobabble about how the miracle occurred. But this episode seems to give Janeway a new attitude towards faith. Number 380 has no collective with which to share its thoughts. Alone in the Dark, Part 2. Or 1. Another entry in this block that follows a single character while the crew is in stasis. This time it's a giant nebula that would take years to get around or a month to go through. And conveniently, the person with the most fear of being alone is the only one that can survive. At least this time she has the Doctor for company. Eventually he goes offline and Seven's emotional level of dread goes to 11. She starts imagining someone has boarded the ship and is messing with her, but that's all just delusional diversion. The lighting choices through her hallucinations are excellent. Coming towards the end of her first full season on Voyager, it's another milestone in Seven's progression towards humanity when she sits and eats with the other main characters in the last scene. Not getting your dream date at 379? The Odo and the Beautiful. Or Crossfire. This might be the most soap opera-ish episode of the franchise. That's not a bad thing, but it's a bit slow. First, Minister Shakar makes his first trip to the station despite death threats. Odo coordinates a massive security effort for the visiting delegate, and Kira finds that she has feelings for her old resistance leader. Since Odo is assigned to protect him directly, he's forced to watch as their romance blossoms. Meanwhile, he still can't find the words to tell Kira how he feels about her. Other than that, Quark proves you're never too old to wear a onesie when he gives his best frenemy some advice that sticks. A heartbreaking but enjoyable episode of DS9. Closing out the bottom half of our Star Trek rankings at number 378. Union Fight. Or Bar Association. When a slow season comes to Quark's bar, Holosuites, and Gaming Emporium, he offers to keep all his staff but cut their hours. This doesn't go over well, and Rom does the most unthinkable thing a Ferengi can do: start a union. This is one of Rom's first big moments of self-actualization and gaining the confidence he'll need to one day rule the Ferengi Alliance. When the FCA gets wind of this, they send their strikebreaker, Liquidator Brunt. Jeffrey Combs is at his absolute best as Brunt in this one. By the end, Quark settles the strike, but Rom quits, and starts his career on the station's maintenance crew. This one's got a ton of filler, but some overall really nice messages.
Computer.
That program is available.
Thanks, Major. Major. Thanks, Major. Major.
Kes is not on board Voyager.
Thanks, Major.
Disabling lateral EPS relays may disrupt computer functions throughout the ship.
Major.
Course adjusted.
Thanks, Major.
The antimatter storage tanks are failing.
Thanks, Major.
Regeneration sequence complete.
Thanks, Major.
Unable to comply.
Major.
Relay failures bypassed.
Thanks, Major.
6 days, 5 hours.
Major.
Vessel approaching.
Thanks, Major.
Warning. Deuterium
Tank levels are fluctuating.
beyond acceptable tolerance.
Major.
Bridge seal.
Thanks, Major.
Primary EPS
Conduits are overloading.
Major.
17
Hours, 11 minutes.
Thanks, Major.
Propulsion system failure in progress.
Major.
Power to stasis units has failed.
Thanks, Major.
Coffee black.
Make it yourself.
Major.
Establish the security code for access.
Enter code.
17346732147 Charlie 32789777643 Tango 732 Victor 731178888 732476789764376 C. Eldray Lock.